And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm dying. There's something incredibly wrong. I found out I'm pregnant, and unfortunately the label that tends to find young mothers, student moms, or unwed mothers is the title failure, and I don't think that's very fair. I think it's incredibly ignorant. I mean, I lived in the heart of campus. When you walk into the grocery store, you feel like you're an eyesore. I had some professors that were very much along the lines of, well, you need to be more prepared than for school. If you're pregnant and having a baby, sorry, you don't get this pass because you have a lot going on in your life.
You find out you're pregnant and you've got another mouth to feed. You've got two little eyes that are looking back at you and wanting you to succeed. Failure is not an option at that point. Welcome back to Unplanned and Untold. Today, we have the honor of talking with a Baby Steps alumni whose journey is powerful, honest, and deeply encouraging. She was part of those early days at Baby Steps at the University of Alabama before the hub officially opened. And her experience as a student mom continues to reflect exactly why our mission matters. I'm so grateful she's here, and I know her story will resonate with so many of you. Now, if you're loving the stories you're hearing on this podcast, there are two easy ways you can support us. First, consider becoming a donor by clicking the link in our show notes and leaving a tax-deductible donation. Every gift, big or small, helps ensure no student mom has to face an unplanned pregnancy alone. Second, drop us a 5-star review. It's totally free and makes a big difference in getting these stories out to more people. Without further ado, let's welcome Abby to Unplanned and Untold. Abby, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I've been really looking forward to interviewing you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Well, as y'all heard, Abby was with us since the beginning, before Baby Steps at the University of Alabama really flourished and became its own hub. And so we're really going to get an inside look at what it was like for her to walk those halls on Bama's campus pretty much alone and without the support of Baby Steps. So Abby, tell us a little bit about what college life was like for you on Alabama's campus prior to getting pregnant.
Absolutely. I started, obviously, my freshman year living in the dorms. I met some amazing friends. I was in a sorority. I was really just living the time of my life. It was incredible. I was originally studying on the biology track, pre-veterinary. Nice. I was working at a veterinary clinic and just living life to the fullest and trying to get my foot in the door career-wise.
Absolutely. So then finding out you're pregnant, take our listeners back. I mean, everyone has a story of how this unfolded. Yours is a bit unique as well. It's not your typical, you knew. So tell our listeners what that was like for you finding out you were pregnant.
Absolutely. I was having some health complications at the time, and that kind of pointed more towards the direction of breast cancer. And so, of course, being young, you're freaking out. Yeah. And I couldn't find anybody a doctor's office to see me in Tuscaloosa. So I made the drive all the way out to Birmingham, very nervous. The doctor was very reassuring. She said, the complications you're seeing aren't really indicative of breast cancer, but we'll run some lab work. I think you're very healthy. We'll follow up. And so if you're familiar with the area, the drive is about an hour back to the University of Alabama's campus. And so about halfway there, I get a phone call from the doctor's office. And the first words out of their mouth were, "Can you pull over? Are you still driving?" Ooh. And so I'm thinking, that's not good because pregnancy was not that was the furthest thing from my mind. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm dying. There's something incredibly wrong. If it's not cancer, it's something else. And she's like, "Well, I have good news." I was like, "Oh, well, that's great." And she's like, "Well, you don't have cancer, just to reiterate, but you are pregnant." And in my head, I was like, "Are you sure you have the right lab work? Wow. That can't be me. Couldn't be her." And so they were telling me, you need to come back for a confirmation ultrasound since you're not sure how far along you are. Maybe stop and get some prenatal vitamins on the way home. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's the furthest thing that I had planned for my afternoon was to go buy prenatal vitamins.
And you were how old?
I was 20.
Wow.
I had just turned 21. So
21.
Yes, a baby still.
I know, truly. I was 21 when I found out too, and I was like, wow, what a way to celebrate. The plans of celebrating your 21st birthday and that year of life drastically changes when you find out you're pregnant.
Very much so. And so I immediately called my mom. And I told her I somehow got it out, and she said, I need 2 minutes to process this, and I'm going to call you right back. And
oh my gosh.
she did. It was like clockwork. She called me back in 2 minutes, and she said, I love you. I'm here to support you. However this needs to play out in your life, like, I am here. Just gather your thoughts and we'll figure out what to do. And so from there, my plans were to go home, pretend everything was normal, because Cameron and I were living together at the time. And so my thought process was, well, I obviously didn't know I was pregnant. I could have already miscarried and didn't know. I need to go get this confirmation ultrasound before I get multiple people involved and all the emotions flying high. Right. So I went home. I pretended like everything was absolutely normal, cooked dinner, did the laundry, we went to bed, and he turned over to like plug his phone in and just like barely brushed the cover on my arm. And it was like, that was what like shook all of the emotion from me. So I'm crying, and he already knows that I had gone to the doctor for like scary health stuff. So he's thinking I'm about to tell him something incredibly terrible, like that I'm dying or something's very wrong. And when I finally said, I found out I was pregnant today, he was so incredibly supportive. He was like, absolutely not the information I thought you were going to share, but we are grown adults. We can figure this out, and we have 9 months to come to terms with being parents. And so that's kind of the direction we took.
Abby, that is incredible, because that is just not the same story we get from a lot of our listeners. I think starting off with your mom asking to take a minute, and not verbally processing what was going through her mind and any normal's mom's mind when you get that news. How did it make you feel knowing that she stepped away for a second to pull herself together, but then when she calls you back, she's like, we've got this. I've got you. We're going to get through this. What does that feel like?
Absolutely. I think my mom has always been my best friend and my biggest supporter. And her number one thing is always like, I'd rather you come to me with absolutely everything, and I can help you find that way. There's no reason to struggle alone. So part of me knew what her reaction would be. I think looking back on it, I'm incredibly more appreciative. In that moment, I was so emotional. Like I could appreciate it, but I couldn't really put it all into words in my head. But now that my daughter's, 3, I look back on that moment and I'm like, if she ever came to me in a similar regard, I would want to be able to provide the same amount of support.
Absolutely. It makes me want to be like that as well. Man, looking up to your mom, I just really can't even imagine the emotions. And then having to tell the father of your child, your boyfriend at the time, were you scared what his reaction would be, or were you pretty sure he was going to stand firm with you as well?
Cameron has always, been very fond of the idea of having a family one day. We kind of had talked about plans of getting married later that summer anyways. Life just kind of took a turn. So we, of course, ended up, instead of planning a wedding, we started planning a nursery and for a baby. And so we knew we were going to be together, and we knew we wanted a family eventually. I think our 5-year plan just got fast forwarded to a 9-month plan. So that was very different, but he was willing to pivot, and he's always been very flexible and supportive.
I love to hear it. So you're walking around a pretty large campus, by the way. If we have listeners who don't live in the South, I mean, the University of Alabama has got 40,000 plus students. How does it feel walking those concourses when you have a big belly and it's visibly noticeable that you are pregnant? It
was incredibly hard. I think I definitely took the easy way out. I eventually did transfer all my classes to online.
Okay.
But still, I mean, I lived in the heart of campus. When you walk into the grocery store, you feel like you're an eyesore. And even though there's other people that live in Tuscaloosa that have no affiliation with the school, that are clearly pregnant and, married and in a different stage of life, you still feel like you're just this walking billboard or something. Yes. And so I think that was a very unique experience. And I think it taught me a lot, not only about myself and how I want to perceive others, but also just instilled a lot of confidence and courage in me that I learned from as well.
I love that. And what about your professors? How were they? I mean, we see stories from super supportive to won't budge at all to, hey, you got yourself into this situation, figure it out. Where did you land with your professors?
I definitely saw a mixture of the both. I think the biggest thing that probably would have helped me more is I did not understand. I believe it's the Title IX laws around pregnancy and education. I think had I had understood that more, I would have advocated for myself. I had some professors that were very much along the lines of, well, you need to be more prepared than for school. If you're pregnant and having a baby, sorry, you don't get this pass because you have a lot going on in your life. Like the nature of your life right now doesn't affect your education. But I did have some other professors that were incredibly kind. There was one professor that definitely stood out to me. I got really depressed, and this is before I had transferred to online courses, and his class was the very last of my day. And so it was just, I had used all of my emotions and courage in the beginning of the day. And so by the time 3 o'clock rolled around, like I was ready to go home and just melt and do absolutely nothing. And so I skipped that class. I know it was very irresponsible. And after about 2 weeks, I emailed him and I said, I found out I'm pregnant. I said, this has been a very emotionally taxing time for me. I'm incredibly sorry I've been missing your class, but this is what's been going on. If I can make up my assignments, are you okay to be flexible with me? And his response, while it was very professional in nature, it was very comforting because he had stated, thank you so much for trusting me with this information. I am happy to, make our course as flexible as you need to accomplish your education as well. And that was probably the most comforting thing any professor has ever said to me during college, because I felt like at that point, the first person I told really outside of my immediate circle was incredibly supportive and wanted to help me see that through.
It makes a world of a difference. And, I hope we can get this podcast out to professors so that they can hear, it can make or break your college career.
Absolutely.
Their willingness to just see you for 1 second as a human being that is facing something that was not planned and can be crippling. And I definitely can resonate with that because my professors who were willing to move around me a little bit, just a little, I wasn't asking for a free pass. I wasn't asking for them to just, pass me without any grades being turned in or doing my work. But being able to pivot as I was pivoting in my life was crucial to getting me to graduation.
Yes. It's incredible what they can do. And I agree, more professors, I feel like, need to be educated on how their response can really change the trajectory of a lot of women's education.
So take our listeners back to graduation day. Is that a memory that you feel like will forever live in your heart?
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely such an uphill battle to get there that by the time the cap and gown reached my house, I was thinking, oh my goodness, I hope I don't ruin anything before I can walk across the stage. And then the morning, my friend picked me up and we drove over to the stadium together. And she actually has a daughter too. And our girls were in the same class at the time. So that was a really nice full circle moment as well, and getting just to walk across the stage and seeing my daughter in the crowd waving at me, her having the biggest smile painted on her face by the time we went around to take pictures. And even now she always asks where my graduation cap is. So that was, I think, one of the most relieving feelings that I had finally made it, but also so inspiring because it really showed me what I can do when I apply myself and use my strength to get through difficult times.
How do you feel like your unplanned pregnancy has impacted your life even after graduation?
Absolutely. I think it has taught me a lot that I've been able to just use in my professional career. I think as a mom, when you're in school and college, you learn a lot about time management, multitasking, and things like that. But I would say, if anything, it's taught me that I have a lot more strength than I've ever really acknowledged before. I did college while I was pregnant, postpartum with a newborn, and graduated with a toddler. And it's hard enough to navigate without that. And so having all of the hormonal differences, education, and you have somebody that cries and likes to eat every 3 hours, it definitely changes things. And it teaches you a lot, not only about yourself, but what your abilities are.
You're built differently, girl.
Absolutely.
You took on something that would have crippled a lot of people. How do you feel like you were able to balance everything? What characteristics are within you that really allowed you to push through those difficult times and overcome those hurdles?
Absolutely. I'm a very type A person in a sense where I have to have things organized and set up, and there's little bins and cubbies all through my house that are ready. So I would say being incredibly organized was very helpful. Simplicity is key when you're a new mom, especially a mom that is, approaching higher education and things like that. So not having to think about what the next meal is going to be and having it prepped, not having to think about who our next sitter is going to be for me to study. I had everything lined up as easy as possible. So I just had to press start on my day and walk through the steps. And that's what kept me going, I think.
I love it. I'm very much the same, just like you. There's this quote, and it says, "Failing to prepare is preparing to fail."
Oh, yes.
And that, I don't know who said it to me. Maybe it was a poster in elementary school class or something. I don't know, but that always stuck with me. It always resonated with me. And I think that, just like you, has allowed me to have a larger plate in life. I mean, people always ask, how do you do it all? How do you juggle everything? How did you get through college like that? Well, it's the preparation piece.
Yes.
I mean, if you don't prepare, failure is right around the corner. So it's really cool to hear how you were very methodical about even the little pieces of your life to make sure you weren't scrambling at the last minute to make something work.
Oh, yes. And even when there were times of scramble, because obviously with kids, you get the curveballs at time to time. It was just also remaining flexible too. So I definitely agree. Being prepared definitely is incredibly beneficial to that situation, but also remaining flexible.
Yes. Is there anything looking back at your story that you feel like you would change or do differently?
I've thought about that a lot.
Yeah.
I honestly would say no. I think if I wouldn't have had my daughter in college, I wouldn't have made a lot of the friendships and relationships that I did. Baby Steps kind of came into the picture towards the end of my college career, but I've made incredibly beneficial relationships throughout Baby Steps for its time that it was involved in my life. I think it's opened many of doors to rooms I never would have found myself in, and because of that, I'm extremely grateful. But I definitely think everything that I experienced in college allowed me to grow and become a much more successful person that I would have been had I had, experienced it the more traditional route.
I agree. It's those hard times that really show you what you're made of, and I wouldn't take them back for anything
Absolutely.
in the world. Now, getting on the topic of Baby Steps, talk to our listeners. How did you find out that Baby Steps was trying to come to the University of Alabama?
Absolutely. So I think Emery, who's been on the podcast before,
Yes.
She made a post on Facebook that was asking if there was any student moms, and she was very specific that it was more geared towards undergraduate moms. And I remember seeing it and I was so perplexed because I was like, I thought I was the only one.
Oh my gosh.
And I see comment after comment, and I think there ended up being about 12 people commenting on there, and I was just in awe. So I joined this little Facebook group that she started, and then Mary, the current director at Baby Steps at UA, is in there, and I started thinking, this is so incredible. I am not alone here. And after that, there started being some events with some photo shoots. And I'm a mom, I love photo shoots with my kids. So we attended, and I started meeting friends and building this little community, because when people say it takes a village, it truly does. And I didn't have that village being 4 hours from my family. And so being able to rely on other moms with children the same age, with similar lifestyles and interests of mine at the time, it really changed everything. I found the friendships that I needed. I had the community for my daughter that I was lacking, and it just felt like light switches started to just turn on all across the board for me.
I have chills because I didn't have that. And that is the whole reason we do what we do, is to be able to give these women the reassurance that not only are you going to be able to be a mother, but you're going to be able to graduate, and you're not going to have to do it alone.
Absolutely.
That is, I feel like, the hardest piece of all of this in my journey was not having the camaraderie or seeing somebody else who had done it and done it well. And if we can just connect these women in community with each other to bounce ideas off, to spur each other on to greatness. I mean, friendships, and camaraderie truly are life-changing, especially when your entire world gets turned upside down when you find out you have an unplanned pregnancy.
Absolutely. I think friendship is the one thing that got me through. Kaylee, who has also been on the podcast before, our girls are best friends. Her and I are communicating on the regular. Unfortunately, we do live about 4 hours away from each other now, but we visit as frequently as possible. And she has kept my daughter many of times. I have kept hers. We have done daycare pickup, drop off, carpool, everything, you name it. And I think she was a key tool in helping me reach graduation and being successful as well.
Oh, I love to hear it. Lifelong friends.
Yes.
I mean, when you go through something pretty traumatic, pretty life altering, yes, those people who you do that part of your life with, they tend to stick around for the long run. It really bonds you together.
Absolutely. I would say she's definitely like my friendship soulmate in a way, for sure.
It. So what are your hopes and dreams for the future when it comes to conversations surrounding unplanned pregnancies? I mean, this podcast was created to knock down those doors of stigma, to give women their voice back, to be able to tell their story and their narrative about their unplanned pregnancy. And a bit of this podcast is entrenched in dreaming of the future and the hope of what these conversations can look like surrounding unplanned pregnancies around college campuses. So what are your hopes?
I would say I really want to change the way society looks at young, unwed student moms, teen moms, however, you find yourself in that situation. I think our society today is really label happy, and unfortunately the label that tends to find young mothers, student moms, or unwed mothers is the title failure, and I don't think that's very fair. I think it's incredibly ignorant, because when you actually start to dissect it and look at this, these are these women's greatest blessings, are their children, and a woman who can overcome an unplanned circumstance and navigate these incredibly difficult times in their life, not only as an early mom, but early into their higher education. How much more incredibly successful can you be? And so I just challenge people to look at it through a new lens and look at this, state of life as a blessing and not a moment of failure. This is where your life begins, is when you get to be a mother and raise your child, graduate and begin your career. And you take a look back at it and you realize how much further you've come than many of your other peers that don't find themselves in similar situations.
I agree. I mean, it sets the bar even higher because we have something to fight for now. We're not just going through college and checking those boxes for ourselves and YOLO, experiencing all the things that we can before we have to grow up. You find out you're pregnant and you've got another mouth to feed. You've got two little eyes that are looking back at you and wanting you to succeed. Failure is not an option at that point. And so we really get to see what women are made out of when push comes to shove and they find out this was not exactly what I was planning, but it's time to pull up my bootstraps and get this done and get it done well.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so incredibly grateful for Baby Steps as well. I think a lot of moms don't feel like it's an option once you find out you're pregnant because, of course, college is a huge financial burden. And as we all know, children are very expensive. And so having Baby Steps, I think, is going to allow a lot of moms the opportunity to do what they felt was truly impossible. I don't think you should have to sacrifice your education or your child when you can easily have both with the right resources and the right people in your corners.
I could not have said it better myself. I really couldn't have. So my last question to you is, if there was somebody listening to your episode right now and she just found out she was pregnant and there's not a Baby Steps on her campus and she doesn't know what to do, she's thinking through all of this and just wondering, can I make it? What kind of advice would you give this listener right now?
Absolutely. I would definitely say take time, think, plan. You have 9 months to prepare for a sweet, incredible blessing to come along. You do not have to sacrifice your education. There are resources out there. You may have to get very creative, but this is the true moment where you get to define what is going to come for your future. And it's possible and you can do it. You just have to meet the right people and sit in the right rooms, and eventually it will all fall into place. This child has come to you for a reason, and so has your education, and the finish line is just around the corner.
Such great advice. Well, Abby, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us. Your honesty, your strength, your perspective in general really means a lot to our listeners and to our community. So I'm just so grateful and honored that you were a guest on the podcast with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. And to all of our listeners, we hope to have you back for our next episode of Unplanned and Untold. Bye-bye. Unplanned and Untold drops new episodes every other Wednesday. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a 5-star review if you love this episode. I'm Caitlin Willing, and this is Unplanned and Untold.